because it's a very important part. And of course, we use those tokens here on coverage as well. And here we have a matchup. It's a little something old, little something new, and nothing blue. Talk to me about Jund Saga versus Boros Energy.
Well, if you were playing Modern in 2015 and you were cryogenically frozen and have just woken up in 2025, you might recognize cards like Tarmogoyf and Dark Confidant and Thoughtseize. Those are all here in this Jund Saga deck with a little bit of a new twist. Got some Nethergoyfs, some Bowmasters, a couple of Ragavans, and it is an Urza Saga deck with access to like Haywire Might, Nihil Spellbomb, and Shadow Spear. This is a deck that had a pretty good run in a recent regional championship in Prague, I believe, this past weekend, and made a little bit of a deep run. I think they made top 32, and playing against kind of the big bad, the Boros Energy deck. Although I guess maybe now Breach is the big bad.
But yeah, the old big bad.
Yeah, but this should be an interesting matchup. You have the Boros Energy deck, creature focused, playing a lot of 1-drops, and Jund, which is very good at killing creatures. So be very interesting to see how this matchup plays out. I would have to imagine, maybe you would take the Jund side of things, although it also kind of depends on how many Blood Moons Nathan has access to kind of shut off those sagas.
For sure. I think Blood Moon's going to be a big player. And ironically, here in game 1, I think Renin 6 is a big player too. I mean, Renin 6 was born to kill Ocelot Prides and Ragavans, right? And a card that hasn't really seen any play. There was a time not so long ago that players were clamoring to get Renin 6 banned. They wanted this card gone. They thought it was too strong and those 4-color elemental stuff. They chose to ban elementals instead. And now, I mean, really, this is the only place I've seen Renin 6 in quite a long time. As we are having a little discussion here. Looks like we did surveil a Ragavan to the graveyard on instep, untap and drew.
What are we thinking?
Do we have too many cards in hand? No. What do we? I don't know what the conversation here is about.
Yeah, now I'm confused. I don't know who was in the play. I didn't quite get a good look. I would assume Jamie was, right?
Yeah, because the Renin 6 is at 4. Yeah, so we've already ticked it up.
Nathan would be on the draw, and he should have 7 cards.
Well, he's about to lose one. As here comes Thoughtseize. Talk to me. I'll tell you what, Jamie looks like a Jund guy. I'm about this. I was talking a little bit before the show. I am here. I want to see. I have a clear favorite. I know casters aren't supposed to have a favorite. I want to see creatures.
Drake, talk to me about that basic planes.
Horrific. That's all you need to know. Horrific.
All right. That's all. Here's a Felia.
We're gonna flash in Felia in response. Don't want that one taken. The leftovers are a lot of spells. Yeesh.
Yeah, and Felia's got a lot of good stuff to flicker here. They see the Fable and the Seasoned Pyromancer in Nathan's hand. You can flicker a Johnny to get an extra token. You can flicker, even just with a Guide of Souls in play, getting extra energy and extra life off of the Guide of Souls. So a lot of good stuff that Nathan can do with this Felia. And we'll have to see if Jamie has a kill spell. Presumably you take one of the 3s. Although maybe it's redundancy and maybe you want to leave him with both and just take the Ragavan so we can't dash that. Also kind of depends on what Jamie has.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I mean, he has a Fatal Push and an Orcish Bowmasters in hand. It looks like those all cover all that pretty well. I think the question is, do you want to Fatal Push this Felia? Like, how scared are you now that you know everything's face up, right? And you know he has all these good targets to flicker. Do you want to just go ahead and kill that now? Or do you want to try to be a little bit more mana efficient, going with Bowmasters and then line that up? Not clear. But Jamie, I think actually still in a pretty good spot. We still have Ren ticking up. Going to hit all of our land drops and, of course, threaten to pick off any X1s that are left stranded. That, of course, could mean like Seasoned Pyromancer tokens, the Ragavan if it's chosen not to be dashed, which would be a surprising thing to me. But the Renin 6 is under a little pressure next to this Galvanic Discharge. So we'll see. I mean, fetch, shock, go just to pick up your land makes me think that we're doing some Bowmaster stuff, but can at least make the decision later. See what Nathan draws.
So I think the reason that Jamie wanted the fetch shock is because, maybe he wanted access to double red, but wanted to make sure he had a black source up to hold up Fatal Push on Nathan's turn. So it kind of has, basically has everything covered, leave his options open. So now in Nathan's spot, do you want to play around the Fatal Push and go for Seasoned Pyromancer? Although if you go for Seasoned Pyromancer and he has Orcish Bowmasters, then things get really tough.
Yeah, that's awkward because then your tokens just don't work, and that's a big reason why you wouldn't reach for the Seasoned Pyromancer. And here it comes.
This is gonna be tough.
Templated. Do you have to you have to flash in the Bowmasters now before any cards are discarded, right? So yeah, here we go. That's gonna happen now.
And the thing is, this is not a May. These are the season. So a lot of these types of effects are not maze. The season pyromancer is you have to draw and you have to discard, or I guess discard then
Ugh.
draw. So this is going to be tough here. So this Bowmasters is going to get to a 3/3, presumably going to kill the Felia because that'll be no attacks here from Jamie, and then you'll have a Bowmasters and a 3/3 Orc army. And Nathan does have Arena of Glory, can discard Flage and then set up for a hasty Flage next turn.
Sure, that's a great
It's at
way to
least
recover
something.
from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, gonna go ahead and bin that. Not the most face down thing. The Flage kind of, having to be in the graveyard here. And then, of course, Arena of Glory gets to stay in hand. But something that I imagine would be on Jamie's radar, as you do see him kind of point towards the Felia, going to pick that off. And one of the tokens as well. Yep. Great exchange there, thanks to Orcish Bowmasters. Another card that really has quieted down, I think, a lot in Modern. This deck full of just like classics that are like strong, but we don't really see anywhere.
Yeah, it's interesting because Orcish Bowmasters used to be a huge part of the format before the One Ring ban, obviously. And, it really kind of fell out of favor right around when the ring got banned. But these Boros decks there was a period of time, like right around maybe early January, where the Boros decks were kind of sort of trying to gun for each other, and they were just adding more 3-drops to their deck, Fable the Mirror Breaker, Season Pyromancer, to be better in those, energy mirrors. And the more Pyromancers and more Fables you have, the better Orcish Bowmaster becomes, and that is, what Jamie is sort of taking advantage of here.
Yeah, and it looks quite good. Here comes some beatdowns from the Orcish army. Gonna beat down for 3. Did use the Wren to go ahead and pick off the last token. So these a lot of 1 damage effects. I think Nathan's gonna have to keep that in mind when sideboarding. Is what are these cards good against, and how much of these X1s? I mean, maybe the answer is you want all of them, but I would be surprised if that were the case. And Jamie drew another old classic Tarmogoyf. See if that one. Oh yeah. It's time.
Wait,
not in the token box any longer.
Did you say Tarmogoyf? I think you meant to say Scrounging Deathclaw.
That's not a Scrounging Deathclaw. That's a Tarmogoyf. I can read.
Well, that's what it says on my deck list, okay?
It just shows you the latest version or whatever.
Yeah.
Sick.
So,
thankfully not playing with those.
Nathan does have the ability to go for this hasty Flage. Now, we know it's not good enough because there is a Fatal Push in Jamie's hand with that Verdant Catacombs up. But if you're in Jamie's spot, what other alternatives do you have? You got a couple of discharges, but no energy. So I guess what you can do is you can go discharge the Bowmaster, bank 2, and then discharge the Renin 6 to clean up those 2. But then, you're facing down 8 power at 15
it's a
life.
lot of power and toughness left over. That's not great. You have some Flages to stymie some time. You don't know. The Fatal Push isn't face up, right? This is not something Nathan knows about.
No.
And also importantly, Nathan doesn't know about the saga that Jamie chose not to play, choosing to play the fetch land instead to respect exactly that Flage turn. Obviously, it's a saga deck. You want to get saga running. Well, if you choose to play a fetch land instead, there's a reason. So he doesn't know about that either. So there's a lot of hidden information there that obviously there's potential for blowout. But Nathan, I think, choosing to spend a moment here to think about this a little longer, I think maybe speaks to, all right, is there a better line? Is there anything else I even could do?
Right. Yeah. It's like, even if I know that Jamie has the Fatal Push, does that matter?
Right.
Is my doubles just discharge turn good enough? And I think, okay, we're lining up 3 mana.
Okay, just a Flage.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. Sure.
Does play on the push, so now you can go 3 to the Glyph and then discharge. Yep.
Okay, that reduces the pressure quite a bit.
Yeah, it gains you a little bit of life too. Now you can, the Pyromancer can check down the Bowmaster. You're just taking 3 damage. And now you're in a spot where next turn, if you haste the Flage, and honestly, I'm going to count the graveyard cards. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's actually a situation where if Nathan respects the Fatal Push, you could even just not haste the Flage. So then if Jamie goes to kill the Flage, you then have the arena unlocked for the next Flage.
Right, and of course you get to get all this time from the triggers still anyway. Otherwise, you're taking huge beatdowns from the monsters in play. That's no good. But the Flage trigger that you get even when they get removed means that you get to spend a lot of time. And even here we see Tarmogoyf. The classic exchange back in the day was Lightning Helix plus Lightning Bolt to take down a Tarmogoyf. Had to get that 2-for-1. Got to do it here in 2025, but being able to get that Flage in the yard is a very different card than Lightning Helix proper. As a little bit of, like I said, a little new, but Tarmogoyf's still getting it done, but gonna need some follow-up. Used to see cards like Scavenging Ooze to clean up this kind of scenario. Let's see if we got any of that going on. We do not. Any graveyard hate at all?
There is one Nihil Spellbomb to get off of Saga.
Sure. Okay. We have a Saga.
Yeah.
Let's put a clock on what's going on here.
Yeah, the thing is, by the time that the Saga can get the spell bomb, Nathan can cast 2 Phlages. So I'm very curious to see if we... Yeah, see, I guess here, because you have land 5, you probably just use the arena, force Jamie to have the Fatal Push, and then you still have enough left over to escape the second Phlage, I believe, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it'd be 1 short.
Yeah, with the other Phlage, right? Because they'll have to get Fatal Pushed.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, I think you'll have exactly enough on the next turn.
Right. You just have to exile. You have to be okay exiling one of your Phlages, which I think you are. I mean, whatever. You can't have 2 of them anyway. All right, sure.
Imagine if that thing wasn't legendary.
I'm good. It's the Valakut mistake all over again. Talk to me.
All right, so Phlage. Not sure if it's being hasted, but presumably Jamie's going to kill it anyways.
Yeah, I think you kill it no matter what. I don't know if that matters. And that, I mean, like you said, that might be a reason to not haste it. It just kind of needs to die no matter what, and so you can just make sure the last one has haste, going after the Bowmasters instead of the token.
It's interesting, though, because if Nathan doesn't haste it here, Jamie can choose to not kill it now, wait until next turn to kill it in combat, so then Nathan can't haste the second one.
And that might be what he chooses to do, and it is. I'm very patient with this Fatal Push. I love it.
I love it.
Love this sequence from Jamie. So
heads up play. Yep. It's not going to take up to 2. Now, we mentioned the Nihil Spell Bomb, so... Yeah, I believe Nathan is currently 1 card short, but say if Nathan goes to combat, Jamie can, crack the Catacombs, push the Phlage, then Nathan with 5 mana can go discharge, kill the Orc token. That's the extra card for then 4 mana for the Phlage. So can still escape the Phlage before Jamie gets to that Nihil Spellbomb.
It's so patient. I think a lot of players would be tempted here to just go ahead and push the Phlage and then try to push a Ragavan dash to get that to connect. And really, I mean, like I said, part of this patience here is so key. And I think Nathan's onto it. I think he's kind of sniffed it out. And I think Jamie's doing a good job. So there's like a meta game here being played back and forth with these players where it's like, all right, here's an attack.
Didn't expect this.
Attack.
There is a Fatal Push in hand, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's a different art.
Okay, so hear me out. I wonder if Jamie's actually just okay with taking a big hit, and then with the spell bomb next turn, he can then Phlage and get both Phlages. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So we thought he was patient last turn. This is the definition.
This is unreal patience. I'm so impressed. And this is honestly, I mean, really to give Jamie a lot of props. This is why I couldn't play Jund. I would have pushed this thing immediately, and you know what? There would be another Phlage that I would have to deal with, and that might even just lose me the game. This might be a game winner. This might be a big difference here, just being able to get both in one spell bomb. And I just don't have it in me. Jamie does, and that's why he's doing so well with these old cards. As here is a Ajani.
Yeah, so this one, poses a problem for Jamie. Now, I guess what you could do, you still have the Orc army, so you can go
and Saga tokens.
Yeah, that's true. So you can go end of turn Saga token, float mana off of the Saga, get the spell bomb, revolt the push off of the Saga, pop the spell bomb, and then you can rend down the cat token, and then if Nathan chooses to flip, you can then just attack it with the Orc army token.
Sure.
Could do that as well.
You also have 2 Rens, right? Like we know about another backup Ren. It depends on how much you value the loyalty on there, and specifically also picking up your Saga next turn. There's some components here.
Yeah.
So there's the push, this patience with this Fatal Push. So impressive. And here comes a Construct. So we're going to do it all. Be very mana efficient here in the end step. Still a pretty healthy 8 for there being like 3 Phlages or whatever cast. A lot of life points.
Yeah, and we go back to that, 2 turns ago, right, where Jamie decided not to cast that Fatal Push and was kind of just setting up for this whole thing where, Jamie realized that if I cast this Fatal Push now, Nathan's going to have a Phlage in play before I get the Spell Bomb. So, the patience to take that big hit, and then now is going to get the Spell Bomb, and his reward is getting both Phlages out of the graveyard, and that is a massive problem here for Jamie.
Yeah, incredible. And up to 3. Looks like we're going Construct mode. And then we get to go grab the Spell Bomb. Don't think there's really consideration to anything else. No, there's the Spell Bomb.
Not at this point.
And
I believe Nathan's last leftover card is a 3rd Discharge, I think.
Right. And his timing on the discharge matters, right? Because now you already know face up that you can't do the attack down the Ajani thing. Your Orc Army's dead. So you have to
Right.
think about the Ajani in a different context now, and that information's all face up. But he has another push.
Ooh, push Ren Ragavan.
Those
So
are
now
some
you
good
could go,
leftovers.
you know what you could even do is you could Ren. This is kind of a heads up play. Ren the token, see if
Oh
he
yeah.
decides to flip. Well, no, if he does flip, oh, okay. Interesting.
We have
Well,
3
now,
artifacts.
well, if Nathan's last card is discharged, we can kill one of the constructs that's attacking the Ajani. So we would actually keep the Ajani in play.
Yeah, you just kill the construct that is attacking Ajani. Here's a look at Ajani Nakatl Avenger. Can't activate this now. We are on the opponent's turn, but very powerful for its ability to make some tokens. We're dashing a Ragavan. Very lethal force threatened here against the Ajani. I think both are attacking the Ajani. There's a discharge going to go after the construct. Let's see if it is true.
So we should.
That is attacking Ajani, or is it attacking player?
I think player because.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say he wants to hold up the Fatal Push because you do have the Black Source to be able to use the Spell Bomb already. I'm very interested as to. I wonder what Jamie was holding the Fatal Push for because we could have pushed that Ajani.
Maybe you don't care about it. Like the 2/1 tokens don't matter, right? You just pick those off with Rens.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's just a card you could just ignore, kind of, for the most part.
Yeah, and there's that Spell Bomb. There's the patience from the Spell Bomb. It still has the Fatal Push up. Found a Nether Goyf.
More Goyfs. Goyf Kindred strategy.
I was gonna say eight Goyf, but there's only 6, so it's Jund 6 Goyf.
Jund 6 Goyf. I think Jund Saga is a better name. I don't know that 6 Goyf is gonna a little too mapped to a specific number here.
Yeah, because then you can't play a 7th one. It has to, you're only allowed to play 6.
We're allowed to play it now too. It's a huge 6/7 for 1 mana. I mean, this deck got some upgrades from MH3.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a masterclass. Now you can just go Ren, ping down the token, kill the Ajani, have the Nether Goyf and the Construct left over, still have a push, still have a second Ren and a Ragavan. You even have Ren plus Saga going now. If you want to, you can go towards that. So Jamie just has the world at his oyster.
Yeah, he's got everything. And like you mentioned, do you even need to answer any of what's going on? I don't even know. Like, it's pretty free to pick off the tokens. I think we will, but I mean, Jamie kind of made a pretty loud statement. He doesn't really care that much about this.
Yeah,
Ajani. I can just pick off your tokens. I do not care. And you're going to die to this massive Nether Goyf before that matters at all. As here comes some beat downs, thinking about where we want to send stuff.
Yeah, honestly, with Nathan on 17, if you just send everything at him, I guess
I think that's a little too disrespectful. Well, yeah. I think like Jamie just being like, all right, fine, I'll kill it. You talked me into it.
I guess might still be lethal anyways next turn. Well, the Guide of Souls
off found Guide of Souls, could just cast that right away. Thank you.
Yeah, because now the Goyf is 6, the Ragavan is 2, that's 8, 9, 10, plus the Ren Pig will be 11 next turn. So close, but not quite.
We don't need to do that. We'll win when we feel like it. We don't need to get ahead on lethal here. This is Junding at its finest. Jund him out. Who cares? Red ping face? No. Pick up lands, more cards. Get it out of here. There's Seasoned Pyromancer. I mean, one of the better draws here, I think, for Nathan. And it's another land that's not going to be good enough. And game number 1 goes to our Jund, my Jund hero. I'm not going to say ours. I think some people are rooting for some Boros energy creatures out there somewhere. But for me, my hero, Jund Saga, is going to pick this up.
I mean, if you show me a deck with Tarmogoyf and Dark Confidant, I'm on your side.
Nothing against Nathan. You know, obviously, I think he played a tight game. I think there's a lot of really good back and forth there. But come on, Jund. Anyways, to the sideboard we go. And speaking of Nathan, here is his Boros Energy deck. Let's go take a look at the sideboard, see what he has for Jund Saga, if anything. In the sideboard, we have 1 copy of Drannith Magistrate, 1 copy of Ghost Vacuum, 4 copies of Obsidian Charmaw, 2 Orum's Chant, 3 Stony Silence, 1 Surgical Extraction, 2 Wear and Tear, and 1 Wrath of the Skies. How we boarding against good old Jund?
Well, I think Nathan has a couple of interesting tools here. Wrath of the Skies, pretty good at killing Urza Saga, construct tokens, Nether Goyf, Tarmogoyf, all that kind of stuff. So I think Nathan's going to want to go towards that, especially because his red removal is maybe not so good, or not. It's harder for him to kill the Goyfs with the red removal. So maybe he wants a cleaner answer to those. In a similar vein, maybe Wear Tear to be able to blow up the Sagas, although it might be a little too narrow. And then if you expect the games to go long, I don't hate the Ghost Vacuum. Not only just turning off or making the Goyfs smaller, but also just being able to, sacrifice Ghost Vacuum and have some large creatures later on in the game.
Yeah, I love the Ghost Vat. I mean, that reminds you of the Relic of Progenitus play patterns that used to matter a lot against Tarmogoyfs as far as cutting them down power and toughness wise, and then ultimately, you can exchange it for a card. In this case, you can exchange it for threats. That's a big deal. I think the Ghost Vacuum is really appealing to me, and the other stuff, I don't know, kind of just depends on what your plan is. I don't know that any of it, outside of answering sagas, is really good against what the Jund decks are. Not a deck I think that was on Nathan's radar building this sideboard. On the flip side, let's take a look at this Jund Saga, the new look of modern Jund, and see what we have for the energy matchup. A lot of one-ups in this sideboard, so here we go. Strap in 1 Beseiju Who Endures, 1 Engineered Explosives, 1 Ghost Vacuum, 1 Graveyard Trespasser, 1 Haywire Might, 1 Meltdown, 1 Nihil Spellbomb, 2 Obsidian Charmaw, 1 Pithing Needle, 2 Pyroclasm, 1 Soul Guide Lantern, 1 Terminate, and 1 Torok Dread Canter. Classic stuff here. What do you want against Boros Energy?
Too many one-ups. Too many one-ups, Drake. Okay, so I'm going to go down one by one. So Haywire Might has a couple of targets, Static Prison and Goblin Bombardment to name a couple, but now you already have one in the main deck. Don't know if you want to go towards a second copy. Turok doesn't line up super well against the red removals, so even though it is good against Ocelot Pride, Johnny Goddess Souls, maybe you don't want to go towards that. Trespasser, that one's probably a slam dunk against Flage. I do like that quite a bit. Pyroclasm, slam dunks. The Boros deck is trying to go very wide with creatures, so that one is quite powerful. The Terminate, I don't know if there's like one particular specific card that you're fighting over, although you may just want more removal spells to break up the God Pride stuff. And then past that, you could go towards the Lantern maybe to have more graveyard hate against Flage, but other than that, just Jund them out.
Just Jund him out. Yeah, a little bit. I like a lot of the artifact stuff that was coming in. Yeah, like any of the Graveyard Hate, take care of the Flages. And of course, Graveyard Trespasser, a card that I think people were calling embarrassing in Pioneer. We're playing here on sideboard in Modern. Here we are. I mean, showing its stuff. As Guide of Souls on turn 1. Nothing from Jamie. Taking the beatdowns. Let's see what the follow-up is for Nathan. Ajani, I think, could be a good follow-up. Expose yourself to Pyroclasm a little bit, though.
Believe it or not, Drake, there was actually a period of time, I want to say it was prior to the ring ban, where the blue-black decks were main decking like 2 or 3 Graveyard Trespassers just for Flage. I think we've kind of moved past that point now, but
I don't know.
There's some Graveyard Trespasser truthers.
Yeah, people called that deck embarrassing back when Rakdos was all the rage and people were doing that. You're like, what is this thing doing in our deck? It's so anemic compared to everything else. Well, sometimes you need some Graveyard Hate. Guide of Souls finally getting Fatal pushed, I think, on the end step. Awkward hand there from Nathan.
No play for Nathan, so very reactive with, I believe, a Flage, a Fable, and a Pyromancer. So just kind of heavy on 3s with two prisons.
Yeah, if he bricks on a 3rd land, he is in a lot of trouble.
Now, the question for Jamie is, do we have a Bowmaster? See, there's the
vacuum. Any questions? I mean, if he misses a land drop, you don't have to worry about anything. Is Ghost Vacuum going to hit the battlefield? It's going to make Flage a little more awkward. Thinking on this Raucous Theater Surveil. Decides to keep. Back over to Nathan. That's a flip card. I don't think it's a pathway.
I think it's in a Johnny.
That's at least a play.
Yeah,
there's a Johnny. Going to bring the token with it. As you get a look at Ghost Vacuum, the rare from Duskmourn, kind of the newest 1-mana Graveyard Hate artifact of choice, can exile target. This one targets, unlike Relic of Progenitus, which I was talking about earlier. You get to target a card from Graveyard, going to go ahead and pick off Guide of Souls from Nathan's Yard. And of course, 6 mana, sacrifice it, put each creature card exiled with Ghost Vacuum on the battlefield under your control with a flying counter. Each of them say 1/1 spirit, and you can only activate as a sorcery. So get a little bit of value if you need to get off it later in the game. If it's no longer doing its thing.
Yeah, and I mean, in a matchup like this, where you expect the games to go pretty long, and you expect Jamie to just fire off removal spells on every creature that Nathan plays, that could be a really powerful 6-mana play. If you have, say, like, a Guide of Souls and a Johnny and a Pyromancer under that thing, and you just do it for 6 mana, like, that's powerful. And Pyroclasm is going to do a nice 1-for-1 cleaning up the Johnny.
Speaking of lining your cards up, how about Pyroclasm into Ragavan? Nice.
Well, I mean, cast the Pyroclasm first. You can also dash
the
Ragavan.
Cast that one first. Yeah, what's the problem? Static Prison is going to take care of the Ragavan, so we have an answer to that, but no 3rd land for Nathan. That's kind of a disaster. Can Jamie capitalize? Is now the question. Is Graveyard Trespasser?
Jamie heard the smack you were talking earlier.
He heard me talking nonsense. He said absolutely not. Notably choosing to exile it with Graveyard Trespasser instead of Ghost Vacuum. Real choice there. I mean, do you want to try to get it later on versus get the life now? Valuing getting the game over with. I respect that a lot. As you get a look at the front half of the rare from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Got Ward, discard a card, hard to do, and then it enters the battlefield or attacks. You get to exile a card from the graveyard, and if it was a creature, opponent loses life, you gain 1. Backside, pretty similar. 4/4 can hit 2 cards. So
still no lands here for Nathan. Just had I kept a hand that was very heavy on 3s, which makes sense in a matchup like this. If you expect all of your cards to get traded 1-for-1, having a bunch of powerful 2-for-1s makes a lot of sense. And just really getting punished for not finding this third land. You would assume if Nathan can find a third land, we maybe still have a game here, because the leftovers are pretty good, but he's gonna have to find it real quick.
And that's the awkward thing with this deck, too, is like these hands are pretty safe to keep because even if you don't find your third land immediately, your cards are all cheap. You can play 1s and 2s and you're pretty happy with that for the most part. And then when you do find your third land, all of your quote unquote expensive spells are just 3 mana. So this hand is still pretty safe. And like you said, if he does find a third land, he is in it, but he does not have a lot of time left as Molten Collapse is going to take care of Guided Souls. That one exiles it, I think. No, it destroys it. That one
it destroys
out of the box. Yeah.
I think Jamie picked up a Saga this turn, so the pressure is going to be increased significantly.
Yeah.
Nathan's already under the gun with this Trespasser, but now the pressure is going to be quite a bit more. Land 3, okay, we maybe have a game now.
Yeah, this is maybe the last turn to find it. Did find it, and now it's time to start getting something going. Energy expired as far as the Static Prison goes. So, if we don't find a way to produce more energy, potentially getting the Ragavan back next turn, maybe suited up with the Shadow Spirit a couple turns. There's some things to think about if you're Nathan, but you have enough mana to cast your expensive spells now, so you can start to stymie the bleeding.
God, those planes, man. And the question for Nathan is, where do you start? You got a Flage, you got a Fable, and you got a Pyromancer. My instinct is maybe you probably have to Flage the Trespasser first, because you might, if you go Pyromancer, discard Flage, it just gets eaten by the Trespasser, and you kind of need that Flage to get back into this game. So I think you kind of just have to go Flage the Trespasser and maybe discard a 3.
Well, it just gets got by the Ghost Vacuum, right? Like, I think you
can
we line up a removal spell on Trespasser and Static Prison the Ghost Vacuum and then get Flage into play somehow? I mean, that's maybe a lot, but Flage buys you a lot of time.
If you wait till you get the 4 mana, you could do that. So, like, maybe you just Thraben Charm the Saga this turn, take your licks from the Trespasser. You can also just Prison the Vacuum this turn. Yeah, Prison the Vacuum. Then next turn...
Oh, maybe we're prisoning the Trespasser, discarding Fable. Okay. 2 mana left over. We can Thraben Charm now. Going to go after the Saga. So we did choose to do the Thraben Charm plus Prison, but the Ghost Vacuum's still around. You get a look at Thraben Charm. A lot of targets or options are on this one. You can destroy an enchantment, exile any number of target players' graveyards. A lot of graveyard aid here. And can deal damage. You go twice the number of creature you control to target creature. Bowmasters.
Yeah, but this, like you said, this Ghost Vacuum is just really kind of making it so Nathan can't get towards that Flage, and that's kind of really where he wants to be at some point this game. That's how he kind of gets back and is able to fight through all these 1-for-1s. We see a Bowmaster here, so Nathan with leftovers of Pyromancer and Flage. The Flage not great against Vacuum, the Pyromancer not great against Bowmaster.
Ooh,
so
what a draw!
And there's the Ren for Saga
pick up the Saga. Oh, that is a beating. Here we go. And yeah, that Flage, I mean, really, like you said, you really wanted to be building before the Flage. It's really one of the ways you grind in this deck. And if all of Jamie's cards just exile Flage, I mean, that's your grinding option, then you're not going to be able to grind at all. And that is a major problem as a second Flage joins the party.
Well, another thing that we got to mention too is, I mean, look at the energy count. There's no energy. Those prisons are going away next turn. That's going to be a Trespasser and a Ragavan for Jamie.
Yeah, and I think we actually did rethink the energy spending. Say, hey, you can have this Ragavan back. I actually need to keep this Trespasser off the board. And it might be time to Flage something, but then it just leaves it to the Vacuum. This is a tough spot if you're Nathan.
Honestly, we might even see Ghost Vacuum sacrifice for a Flage and a Gata Souls.
I'd take that. That sounds quite good. Wait, does the Flage just die? Does the token just go away because it's not escaped? Oh, this doesn't feel good. But I mean, you just kind of have to. I don't think you can.
Yeah,
you need blockers.
You probably don't have a choice. Well, the blockers aren't going to happen, right? Because Jamie could just kill both elemental tokens.
Yeah, and Ren picks one off. I mean, really, you just. Oh, yeah, this is tough. 2 new cards coming, a flip card, and another Thraben Charm. Away goes Flage number 1, and Vacuum's going to suck up the second one, too.
I think a land is lethal.
Yeah, because you get 2 helixes.
Right, you can go Ren, ping a token, attack with everything. Oh, well, there's only 1 helix now. right?
Right, and you need to tap it to sacrifice, so you don't get 2 right away.
Yeah.
I mean, again, what's the rush? There's no, like, how is Nathan clawing out of this in a single turn cycle? Yeah, we're going to vacuum up. Whee! Suck up that second flage.
We can just double helix next turn, and that's almost certainly lethal.
Yeah, pick off a token, and yeah, sure. Here's a 3/3. You want to block? I mean, it's lethal out of the vacuum. If you talk about magic cards in a vacuum, a lot of times that's a saying we use. Well, now there's actual magic cards in a vacuum
literally
that are presenting lethal here.
Yeah, really rough draw here for Nathan. You know, we mentioned kept the hand with a 2-lander with some 3 drops, really good in the matchup, but was really just never able to find that 3rd land.
Yeah, I mean, that was the story of the game, and like, you know, normally I really want to stress that. Normally you have time. You have time to cast your spells. I mean, we saw Nathan drew castables. That's the thing. No matter what you draw with 2 lands, if it's a land, you can cast your 3 drops. If it's not a land, as long as it's not a 3 drop, you can just cast whatever you draw. That usually leads to success in a lot of spots. I mean, you'll find your land or you'll find castables, and that'll lead to a victory. In the case of this Jund Saga deck, though, you have so many tools in the post-board game that line up well against your plan to just kind of tread water and then win later, which is, of course, Flage. And because of that, that was the story of the game, right? Those Flages being vacuumed up, that's exactly what Nathan needed not to happen. And because of that, that really directly led to a loss. Like, he could beat the mana problems, he can't beat the mana problems, and just never, you know, none of his Flages staying in the graveyard.
Yeah, and on top of all of that, you know, some of Nathan's best cards in the matchup were cards that draw extra cards, Fable the Mirror Breaker and Season Pyromancer, and both of those games, they just kind of got clowned by Orcish Bowmasters, which is, you know, there's just so many cards in Jamie's deck that line up very, very well against what Boros is doing. And, you know, I mean, if you got a Boros problem, maybe Jund is the way to go.
And it doesn't stop there. And this is something I'm excited to talk to Jamie about as we do work on getting him in the booth here in just a moment. The de facto best deck, I talked about this a little bit, but in my mind, because I'm such a Mox Opal stan, that's kind of the deck to beat in my mind. It's like, okay, whatever's going to be playing Mox Opal, that's what I'm scared of. Traditionally, Jund was good against those style of things. And if you're loading up on Graveyard Hate that's already good against Boros Energy, you're great against their creatures because you're a Jund deck. But if you're loading up on Graveyard Hate to beat their Flages, that also just beats the Brighting. Yeah, here we are. Jamie, congratulations. I was just ranting on a little bit about your deck choice, but I'd rather hear it directly from you as you're now 6-1 on Jund Saga. Talk to me about Jund.
I basically only play Jund in Modern or like Black Green X. I don't really play Magic like too much anymore, so I don't really want to like learn a new deck. And I saw this deck did well at the European RC, and I'm like, okay, well, this has like Dark Confidence in it. I'm going to play this, and then probably O2 drop, and then I'll play in the team tournament tomorrow. But instead,
now we're here.
You've done it. I mean, I told Doom that you did look, you know, you struck me as someone, you had the mannerisms of a Jund guy, and I'm glad to hear it. It warms my heart. A dying breed, potentially. Now you're so back with Jund. So you just chose to sleeve it up and show up. I love it. A 6-1 performance. Congratulations there. Talk to me a little bit about your day. Talk to me about your matchups and kind of the new face of this Jund deck.
Yeah, so I got like destroyed by the Black-White Taxes deck in round 1. And I'm like, okay, the O2 drop is coming. And then I just like I've played like a different deck every round. I played against like I think my matchup against Breach is good, and I 2-0'd the one Breach guy I played. I think my matchup against Eldrazi is terrible, but luckily my Eldrazi opponent who I played just like flooded out, so I was able to win that match. Trying to think of like the other interesting one. Oh yeah, and then last round I played blue-white, and that's like probably the first time I've ever beat like a Wrath of Disguise deck, because that card just says destroy target Jund player's board for like 2 mana. So.
Yeah, so you know, you talked about some of these matchups. The Boros matchup in particular, you know, Drake and I were talking about this as you were just kind of dismantling Nathan over there. It seems like this Jund deck really lines up well against Boros. You know, you have a lot of ways to kill 1 toughness creatures, the Graveyard Hate. So was that kind of something that was on your radar and maybe you know, inform some of your deck choices?
Yeah, very much so. Like I played that entire first game was just like I need to like deal with these Flages. So like I just like took a Flage hit because I'm like, okay, if I kill this, he's just gonna bring it back, and then I like don't have a way to deal with it. But with a spell bomb coming in, could just like kill it and then go from there.
Yeah, and that seemed to be what the Cyber game was about too. You know, kind of getting back to that match and like really heads up. I mean, we're so patient. We really were highlighting how patient you were with that fatal push in game number 1 to line up, getting all the Flages in one go. I don't know that both of us in the booth have the patience for that, but really well executed there. And in the sideboard games, I mean, it was really just the story of if you're missing land drops, Flage is how you catch back up, and you had just all the answers to Flage. It really speaks, I think, a lot. Yeah, to your deck.
I wasn't gonna get Flage, and then like I ripped the red in 6 at like the perfect time. I was like, okay, this works.
Yeah, that's incredible performance there. And obviously now at X and 1 going to your last round, not clear. I don't want to speak to, what your actual top 8 chances are, but, seeing some Dark Confidants and a Jund deck in top 8 here in 2025, I don't think it was on anybody.
There's probably a good chance if I top 8, that is the only Dark Confidants that will be in like a top 8 the entire year.
There's a good chance. You never know. Last question for you here, Jamie, that I have. So you mentioned the Eldrazi deck you don't want to face. Is there any other matchup that you're looking to dodge?
I really don't want to play the Black-White Taxes deck again.
Okay.
It's really like the Overlord is just so hard to keep up with. And like even if you kill it, you're behind on cards because they like got a trigger out of it already. And then also just because like damage-based removal is like pretty bad, at least in my mind, because of like the Frog deck, which I have not played all day. But like I really didn't want to play like Lightning Bolt or a bunch of Unholy Heats because you run into that deck, your removal is terrible. So you play a bunch of Fatal Pushes and then you run into the Black-White Taxes deck. And the Fatal Pushes are like dead against the cards you want to kill. So.
Classic Jund problems. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And the Blink deck, there's a lot of hype around that one. I know, obviously, we talked a little bit earlier in the broadcast about our NRG champion, Theo Jung. Did you choose to register that? So is that the best deck? Tell me, before we go, what's the best deck in the format right now?
I think Breach is probably the best deck. I mean, It seems like very resilient to hate. And like the joke is, well, you don't need to ban Breach because all of your sideboard is good against it, but it keeps winning. So that it has 8 Moxen and can just kill you on turn 2 in some cases. I don't know how like the percentage wise, but that feels pretty good when you can do things like that. And then also just like survive a bunch of hate and like kill people anyway.
I was expecting you to say Jund, so
no.
Yeah, I was a part of you hoped you said Jund, but I appreciate the nod to realism. As you know what, I hope you take it all down. I would love to see some Jund representation at the end of the year championship. And congratulations on your run so far. I very much look forward to watching you play out the rest of this tournament. However, that takes shape. Good luck. All right. Well, thank you, Jamie, for talking to us about Jund Saga. I have so much respect for deck building. It's like, this is all I do. This is all I play. I'm going to show up and play. And if I owe to, that's fine. There's so much peace in that. And, I'm very glad, somebody I'm happy to cheer for. And, I'm sorry to Nathan. Unfortunately, I don't know how the tournament's going to work out. X2, kind of tough usually to make it in top 8, but still a chance we see more of Nathan as the tournament progresses. But we're not done with Magic here for round number 7. We do have a backup match that we're going to get through really quickly. And it's Grinding Breach, the deck that Jamie said is the best deck in the format, versus something I have not seen in many moons. You were bashing it a little earlier in the broadcast, talking about Mox Opal. Azorius Affinity.
I wouldn't say that I was bashing it. I said it wasn't as good of an Opal deck as Breach was, which is probably true. And I guess we'll have to see who the real Breach deck is in this matchup. Now, I don't exactly know how this matchup goes typically, but I will say the Azorius side of things does have a little bit more interaction than your typical, Mono Blue Affinity deck, because they have Portable Hole 4 copies in the main deck. So that can help fight over, if an early grinding station gets deployed or something like that. It is a little awkward because the Breach player can sometimes just wait to play the combo pieces on the combo turn, so it can be a little awkward at times. But yeah, it's really just going to come down to counter spells as well. There's Metallic Rebuke, Sink into Stupor, and then once we get to post board games, there's a few more counter spells as well.
Yeah, this is kind of what I would call like an asymmetrical mirror, even though these decks are not even the same colors, not really even like the same generic strategy. Obviously Underworld Breach versus like artifact creatures. The core components that glue the decks together are very much the same. You're talking about Urza Sagas, you're talking about Tamios, which are both in play right now, and you see both players making clues. Urza Sagas, Mox Opals, like all those things, and backed up by counterspell interaction. That is a lot of the same, just meat and potatoes. It's a lot of the same stuff that glues your deck together. It's just a different payoff. And I think really a lot of the question that people are having right now is, okay, what are the advantages and disadvantages of both these directions? And in this case, who's the head-to-head favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to probably assume that the Breach side of things, I would probably rather take their side, just because you have that kind of combo potential out of nowhere, and you have Jacob who's playing. We got Urza, Lord High Artificer in Jacob's deck, so really kind of respecting more playing towards the late game. Thought Monitor, Urza, Thoughtcast wants to play more of a longer game. Doesn't really have some of the a similar closing speed that the Grinding Breach deck has, and I think that could be a little bit costly in this specific matchup.
Yeah, no Arcbound Ravagers, no Steel Overseer, not a lot of the affinity cards of your kind of the new stuff. We got Thought Monitors, Urzas, that kind of thing. Kind of more of an 8-cast deck really than anything else. We got the 4 Thoughtcast as well as Metallic Rebuke going to come down, I think, on a Malevolent Rumble. It's aggressive, but we have it. And we have Esper Sentinel to refill cards too. I kind of like what's going on here. I like that exchange actually quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about this earlier, how good Malevolent Rumble is. I think it might be the best card in the Grinding Breach deck. And there's definitely, I
There's
mean,
stiff
it's definitely
competition
a
there.
take, but I've heard some things about, people force of negationing Malevolent Rumble on turn 2 out of like the blue-black frog deck. And I mean, it kind of makes sense. That is what holds this deck together. It allows you to find combo pieces, fill the graveyard for Breach, Delirium for Woodland. It gives you back a mana. It just kind of does everything. And there's definitely some circumstances where if you counterspell the Malevolent Rumble, they can't dig towards that combo, and it buys you a little bit of time, which, Jacob missing a whole bunch of land drops definitely needs that kind of time.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get to cheat it. That's kind of the affinity joke of old. You get to cheat it with these artifacts as we do attack with Tamio to make another clue. And then that gives us the necessary artifact count here to get the thought cast going, try to find a land there. And of course, that will also flip Tamio. So a little synergy there going on.
Yeah, thought cast Tamio is nice.
Oh, yeah. Talk to me. And
the question for Jacob is, did we find a land?
Right. Mox Opal carrying a lot of the weight so far. I don't see an abundance of lands. Maybe there's a Darksteel Citadel far left. Yeah, okay, we got Citadel. Okay.
That's something. And then I think we got a Tamio, a Sentinel.
Relic. Ooh, that gives you a lot of time.
Yeah, that's definitely good against the... It is a little bit awkward sometimes against the combo, because the way that the combo works is if they have the Breach in play, a station untapped, and an extra 0, like you have to respond to the you relic, say you relic their graveyard, right? They can just go station, sack, mill 3, and then kind of keep going from there. So it's a little awkward to time the relic pop, but it certainly does stop the Emery, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, and I kind of like, honestly, being a little proactive with it. Like, there's an Emery in play, like you said. So, like, just going for it, nuking the graveyard ahead means that you need a little bit more time to build up a graveyard to even breach combo to begin with. You get your card exchange. You need to make land drops. You need to get some pressure going. You don't really have time to sit around and, like, sit behind the relic and try to, like, you're not laying any beatdowns or anything. Because Esper Sentinel's going to trigger Metallic Rebuke going after the Flame of Anor.
Yep.
Good grief.
Yeah, and I think it looks like that was all with the Saga trigger on the stack. So now we're resolving the Saga trigger. Alden, no mana floating because we spent 3 on the Flame of Anor, and then we used the Scion to sack to pay for the Sentinel. But worth noting, interesting thing to point out here, Drake, that Relic of Progenitus is in play. There's no mana for Jacob. So if Alden has a combo turn, you can just kind of, you're good to go.
And we do see a breach, does find Mox Opal, and that's really smart with the way he sequenced. I really want to give Alden props there. Sequencing it before, a lot of people see float the mana and then go grab something, can make the decision on what to grab based on what happens with this Flame of Anor. So that was a really heads up way to do things there for Alden. It does get to activate Emery, and like you said, no more mana for Jacob means that no Relic in response, which means Mox Amber comes back from the graveyard. And here comes another clue from Tamio. So we just finished combat, no damage dealt. Soul Guide Lantern, the follow-up. No combo turn yet, it looks like. So we're going to hold on to the Breach plus. It looks like a blue card, the leftovers, maybe a backup Emery.
Yeah, I think, I believe it is an Emery. I think he was just a little bit short on mana to go for like Breach into Rumble, because that's where you kind of want to start to get it going. I think there might have been an Amber in the graveyard. I'm not positive. So maybe you could like take a little bit of a gamble where you go Breach, Amber, Exile 3, oh, but you don't have a green source left over because you have to use the Opal to cast the Breach. Never mind.
Urza, which is going to do a good job turning those clues into functional mana here for Jacob. So Urza, a card from with the original Modern Horizons that had a lot of heat on it then. It's been 2 Horizon sets since, and here he is, a comeback and a thought cast coming as well. Tamio is still not activated yet. Options there based on what you want to do with Tamio. And some cards drawn, plenty of mana available now.
It's all coming full circle, Drake. Remember when Mox Opal was banned, I mean, a lot of the decks that it was in at the time had Urza. Now, granted, they also had Oko in them, but we don't talk about that.
A little different, yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, this was kind of the more popular version of artifact-based decks back then. And I'm a little surprised to see more people, or I'm a little surprised to see people have not tried to like cook with Urza, because it is an extremely powerful card if you compare it with a bunch of these cheap artifacts.
And Jacob's done a good job of that. And like I said, you had some mana problems early. Now even the Esper Sentinels represent mana. Like we're full cooking here. As
now we're flooded.
Yeah, now we're flooded. Exactly. We got the 3 lands, and now we have too many, as Urza solves all of the mana problems and the pressure problems. So now there's honestly a real pressure on Alden to get this game over with as soon as possible, which is a lot harder to do now that Relic can be popped, and that's what's going to happen in response to this Emery activation. Did not see what it was targeting. Doesn't matter. Cash in the Relic.
Now there's a Saga, a Breach, an Emery, and an Unknown. I don't know what the last card is. So now you can use the Emery to mill over. Oh, we found a station. I think that's just game then.
Is that it? We have Breach. Can we get a second mana? We don't have another Mox to get rid of the other Mox.
Oh,
we
have a land, right? Land drop.
Right, yeah, we have a land. Okay, so now we Breach. And
now, is there any interaction from Jacob's side? There is 3 Rebukes. I believe we've gone through 2 of them. There's also 1 Sink into Stupor in Jacob's main deck. So those
we have 3 artifacts,
that we
can cast that stuff. Yeah. Notably chose to tick up Tameo last turn. I mean, we could have ticked that down and picked up a
rebuke,
the
rebuke. Yeah,
I'm reading this. Yeah, could have done that. That might have mattered. Maybe not. Here comes a card.
Looks like we're popping a clue.
And then, there's Grinding Station out of the yard. And we've done it. We have 0+ Grinding Station. That's enough plus Breach there to mill the whole library. And of course, we can make blue mana the whole time. That's game right there.
Yeah.
Going to take a look at the library. But I mean, it doesn't matter what you have. That's it. Alden. I mean, we mentioned it was like time. Urza hits. This is really your last window to do it. And you mentioned around Relic of Progenitus. It got the graveyard nuked right there. Had the backup Emery to refill. And we did it. We assembled the kill after the Relic, and so Alden's going to win game number 1 in an impressive display of beating some hate. So with that, we're going to go to the sideboard games, take a look at the new Face of Affinity in the hands of Jacob Tanner, and specifically, of course, the sideboard. Let's take a look at 4 Consign the Memory, 3 Damping Sphere, 3 Dispatch, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Spell Pierce, and 1 Teferi Time Raveler. How are we sideboarding against the Teamer Grinding Breach deck?
I mean, honestly, Drake, there's really not a ton here. I think you want to go towards the Cage and the Relic, those graveyard hate spells. You could maybe go towards Spell Pierce, although it does kind of line up awkwardly against the Moxes, because the Breach deck has so much extra mana lying around sometimes, so the soft counters aren't as good. Past that, I mean, I don't know if you want to go towards Damping Sphere. It's kind of a weird one where, there's enough ways to answer them, because I believe, there's like Nature's Claims in the sideboard. We'll get to that in a second. So I don't know if you want those. The Graveyard Hate for sure, but past that, maybe the Teferi?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Teferi's got text about stuff. I don't know. It's got a lot of text. I don't know why it's not in your main deck if you're going to want this card at all. But, I mean, maybe just counterspell protection. I mean, it's got a lot of targets. Can do a lot of things. I can see the Damping Spheres. I mean, your Nature's Claim's already going to have good targets in this deck, so maybe that's just fine. But, I mean, I think there's a fair bit to like. A lot more counterspells and maybe some Damping Spheres if you want to go toward the Prison Pieces as well. And over to Alden we go, and their take on Grinding Breach, a deck we've seen quite a bit already today. We have 1 copy of Besieger Who Endures, 4 Consign to Memory, 1 Flame of Anor to go with the main deck copy. A Jace Wilder Mysteries, 2 Nature's Claim, 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Unholy Heat, 2 Veil of Summer, and 2 Whip Flare. What do you like here?
I just want to point out that we're playing Whip Flare over Pyroclasm, and we're playing against Affinity. I just wanted to throw that
that's tough.
So those ones not coming in. Consign, you would think normally great against an Affinity deck that has a lot of artifacts, but all the artifacts are kind of colored, right? Esper Sentinel, Kappa Cannoneer, Thought Monitor doesn't stop any of that stuff. I guess it still stops Opal and, some of the sideboard cards, but I don't know if you want to go towards Consign here. The claims are great. Probably wants to go towards the Heat and the Flame and the Beseju. You could also maybe talk me into Needle on Saga, although that turns off your sagas. But most of the time, I would guess that Jacob's sagas are going to be better than Alden sagas with more permanence in play. So just some options there for Alden.
Yeah, well, it really, I think the nature of it is how much do you want to battle what's in play versus what's going on the stack. Do you want to try to battle in the counterspell axis with Consigns and Veil of Summers and stuff like that, or do you just want to go only removal, Nature's Claims, maybe Unholy Heat and that kind of stuff? We'll see, and maybe you can split the difference too. It's just really a question of what Alden wants to do here on the draw. As Grafdigger's Cage, we're starting out with the Hateful Permanence. No wasting no time is Jacob, as here is Grafdigger's Cage.
Yep. Yeah, that is that's the graveyard here. You're gonna want to give that one a read, Alden. So that is gonna turn off Underworld Breach. It's not gonna turn off Tamiyo though, and this is kind of exactly what we talked about in the previous match that we saw on camera, where the Breach player was just able to kind of board into more of a grindy plan post board and in the face of all of the sideboard cards, and that's that's why it's one of the best decks. And I see Jacob on 3 cards in hand. That's a lot of mulligans there, Drake.
Yeah, I think it was a mold of 5 on the play. And so we've deployed a Moxel, we've deployed Grafdigger's Cage and some other stuff, but not a lot going on. And that's going to let this turn to Malevolent Rumble and Tamiyo really start to go to work as far as not just finding, you get selection out of the Malevolent Rumble, but just getting card advantage as well with Tamiyo. And we're going to choose Mox Amber, so you get an actual just Mox Sapphire off of your Malevolent Rumble, effectively a free spell as you have 2 mana after the fact.
Yeah, Tamiyo's going to make some clues. This is just everything firing in all cylinders here for Alden. Yeah, but this is, and Tamiyo is going to be flipping. There's a Breach in hand, which already got some cards in the graveyard for. I think I saw an Explosives. I think there might have been a Heat. So now looks like
a lot of good stuff. Having the Breach already, I think, a big part of the equation as well. I mean, sometimes you just need to find the Underworld Breach. It's part of what I think the Shifting Woodland is kind of a nod for. Is like, if you're just milling and you just can't get the Underworld Breach in hand, it keeps going to the graveyard, you're in some trouble, as Pithing Needle does come down. Not clear what you're naming with that one.
Another Opal here drawn for Jacob. That's not what you want.
Not what the doctor ordered at all. And if you're not putting any pressure on Alden,
you're a grinding station. That's funny.
Hello. So do we have the answer to Grafdigger's Cage?
I don't think there's no red mana. That's a good point.
And red mana.
Yeah, okay, we need the answer. Because I thought there's a Nature's Claim in hand, but I think we're missing red mana is the problem.
Sure. Okay. I mean, so Alden needs some stuff, but I mean, he has so much time.
Yeah, he does have a lot of time.
There's the grinding station. All right. So, yeah, I mean, that doesn't really do anything yet.
I think the leftovers for Alden are Breach, Oracle, and Claim. So this turn you might want to go for
some
Claim
good leftovers.
Claim on Cage, peel a red source. You could even wait to cast the Claim next turn to see if you draw the red source first. Give you a little bit more information, and like you mentioned, Alden just has tons of time. You can even, if you just draw a land, you could also flip Tamiyo, right? And if Jacob's still just going to do nothing, maybe that's a better plan, because that doesn't kind of, it exposes you to less stuff, and you can draw half of your library before going for the combo, which drawing half your library seems pretty good.
Well, we found more good ones. We found red mana, and we found a Sink into Stupor if we want to go that direction. So we're Nature's Claiming the Grafdigger's Cage right now. No counter spells for Jacob, no lands either. It means he's in some trouble, and Alden might just have a kill right now. Yeah, we're just revealing our hand, and we're done. That's it.
There you go.
Bam. There you go. Check it out.
I have
Breach plus this other stuff. And I mean, we talked a little bit about this asymmetrical mirror because these decks are doing very similar things as far as what their best cards are. We're talking about Mox Opal, we're talking about Urza Saga, we're talking about all those kinds of cards. At the end of the day, having just a kill out of the box that you can assemble, as well as any of the like Saga token stuff you're doing, is what makes the Breach deck so powerful, and something that the Affinity deck doesn't really bring to the table. It can grind, but it needs to attack to win just at a base level, and that is a weakness that deck has that the Breach deck doesn't, and I think we see that come into play there. It's like, Alden able to just kind of win out of the box, doesn't need to like even play the Affinity game in any kind of aspect, and is able to just slam the door on the game when he has all the pieces. There you go.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that matchup, too, is the Affinity deck is a lot more about critical mass. You need to assemble a high number of artifacts to make cards like Thought Monitor and Thoughtcast and Kappa Cannoneer functional magic cards. And the Breach deck can just say, it doesn't really need that, right? You can mill over some stuff with Rumble and Emery, plenty of ways to do that. And then it just has a one-card combo. You just draw the card Underworld Breach. There's really no setup required, a little bit of graveyard, but and then on top of the fact that they also have sagas. So just in terms of like card quality, it seems like the Breach deck has a bit of an edge there, and no surprise that the Breach deck took it down.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. So that will conclude round number 7. I'm going to talk a little bit about actually a new format before we cut to a break and bring you the final round of Swiss. We're going to talk a little bit about some value vintage. So this is a really cool take. I like this a lot. So instead of vintage has its own deck building restrictions, if you can even call it that. There's a bunch of restricted cards, this long ban list, but at the end of the day, the decks still cost just thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to assemble. Well, check it out. If you only have a $30 budget, you're not going to be able to put any Moxen in your deck at all. And, you can actually build entirely new decks. But a lot of cards, I mean, you see some of them pictured here. Soul Ring, Balance, Go Guard, Grave Troll. Those cards are really cheap. So you can still play with powerful stuff, but a lot less of the expensive investments that Vintage is kind of known for. So having such this wide open thing gives you a lot of options for deck building. $30 budget. It is value Vintage. You can scan the QR code on your screen to learn a little bit more about it. And we're gonna have some official side events at our Energy Series events all through 2025. That's pretty sweet. Low cost to get into, and a lot of deck building room. Quite literally a brewer's paradise, and something that I had not really spent any time thinking about until it was introduced to me here on the series. And I think there's a lot of things you can do with it that are really cool, just off the back of some of these cards being really cheap. And it's awesome stuff. Really cool new format to support as far as Energy Series goes. And of course, the budget means there's a rotating format, right? Like if something gets too expensive, then it kind of has the Penny Dreadful thing going on that MTGO has. So a lot of cool stuff there. Something that you could do at our Energy Series events. And some of the players that dropped, they get a chance, really the first crack at it here at the 10K Modern Showdown. But that will do it for round number 7. Thank you for bearing with me through all of that. And we will be back for the final round of Swiss here in just a little bit. Make sure to follow and subscribe if you don't want ads to support the stream. You're not going to want to miss the rest of the action today and tomorrow. We'll see you in a bit.